The night was cold and silent. Rain fell over the broken ruins of an alien city. The wind carried the smell of rust, smoke, and something worse, the smell of death. Among the piles of metal, plastic, and rotting waste, something moved. At first it looked like a piece of cloth blown by the wind. But then it breathed. Under a half-broken metal sheet lay a small alien girl. Her skin was pale blue, covered in dirt and cuts. Her eyes, once bright like stars, were now dull and tired. She had been thrown away and like garbage, like nothing. Her people called her defective, too weak, too strange, not worth keeping. For days she had survived on drops of rainwater and small scraps she could find. Her voice was gone. Her heart had almost stopped hoping. She had seen many others die in this wasteland. No one ever came back. No one cared. She was alone. Then a light appeared in the sky, a dim blue glow cutting through the clouds. A small ship slowly landed nearby, stirring up the dust. The girl tried to crawl away, afraid. She had seen hunters before. People who came to take parts from the dead. They would not care if she lived or died. The ship door opened with a hiss. A figure stepped out, covered in a worn jacket and breathing mask. A human. His name was Ethan Cross, a scavenger who traveled from planet to planet, collecting lost tech and broken machines to sell. He was tired, hungry, and low on fuel. He didn't expect to find anything alive in this place. As Ethan walked through the wreckage, his flashlight beam moved across twisted metal, empty containers, and shadows. Then he saw movement, small, weak, and trembling. He pointed the light and froze. There she was, the alien girl, curled up, shaking from the cold. Her glowing eyes blinked at the sudden light, frightened but still alive. Ethan lowered his gun. For a few seconds, neither of them moved. The only sound was the rain hitting the metal around them. The girl tried to crawl back, but her strength failed. She fell face first into the mud. Ethan's breath caught. He had seen many corpses in his life, but there was something different about this one. This one was still breathing. He knelt down slowly. "Hey," he said softly, even though he knew she might not understand. "It's okay. I'm not here to hurt you." Her body shook harder. Her thin fingers dug into the mud, trying to crawl away. She didn't believe him. She had learned that no one's hands were kind. Ethan sighed, pulling off his glove and reaching out carefully. His hand brushed her shoulder, cold, wet, trembling. She flinched, but he didn't pull away. Instead, he wrapped his jacket around her fragile body. "You're freezing," he whispered. "Let's get you out of here." She didn't answer. She didn't fight. She just stared at him with wide eyes, confused. No one had ever spoken to her that way. No one had ever tried to help. Ethan lifted her into his arms. She was light, too light, like a child made of paper. Her head rested against his chest as he carried her through the rain, back to his ship. The AI inside, a voice named Astra, spoke through the intercom. "Unknown life form detected. Caution advised." "She's not a threat," Ethan said. "She's just lost. Recommendation, leave her. Species unknown. Possible infection or danger." Ethan ignored the warning. He placed the girl on the medical bench, grabbing a blanket and wrapping it around her. He gave her a small bottle of water. "Here," he said gently. Her trembling hands reached for it. She drank slowly, drops spilling down her chin. She looked at him again, still scared but now curious. "What's your name?" Ethan asked. No answer. Only silence. He smiled a little. "All right. We'll figure it out later." Hours passed. Ethan checked her wounds. Shallow cuts, bruises, no major damage. He patched them carefully. She fell asleep, her breathing finally steady. For the first time in days, she looked peaceful. Ethan sat nearby, staring at the rain outside the window. He didn't know why he cared. He'd passed by hundreds of dying things in the wastelands before. He told himself not to get involved. But when he saw her, something changed. Something deep inside him refused to walk away. Maybe it was her eyes, full of pain yet still fighting to stay alive. Maybe it was because he'd once felt the same way, lost, unwanted, thrown away. When she woke again, she saw him still there, sitting by her side. No weapon in his hands, no chains, only quiet patience. She whispered something weakly in her alien tongue. He didn't understand, but he could guess. "Thank you," she had said. He nodded, though he couldn't be sure. "You're safe now," he told her softly. Outside, the storm slowly ended. The city remained broken, but inside that small ship, a faint warmth had returned. A human and a discarded alien, two strangers who were never meant to meet. now shared one fragile moment of trust. And without knowing it, Ethan had just changed both their lives forever. When the storm ended, the sun tried to rise behind the thick gray clouds. Light slipped through the cracks of Ethan's ship, touching the face of the alien girl. Her breathing was slow, her lips dry, but her body no longer shivered. Ethan sat nearby drinking cold coffee, watching her with quiet eyes. He didn't even know her name. Only that she had been left in the trash, thrown away like she was nothing. The thought made him angry, though he didn't know why. He'd seen cruelty before, but this was different. She wasn't an enemy. She wasn't a machine. She was just a scared girl. A small sound escaped her lips. Her fingers moved. Ethan leaned forward. "Hey," he whispered. "You're okay now. You're safe." Her eyes opened, glowing faintly blue. She looked around in confusion. The metal walls, the soft light, the sound of engines. Then her gaze fell on him. She tensed, trying to sit up, but pain stopped her. Ethan lifted his hand slowly. "Easy, you're hurt. Don't move too fast." She blinked, her breathing fast. He could tell she didn't understand his words. Her language was different. Still, tone spoke louder than words. His voice was calm, not harsh. His movements were gentle, not threatening. She watched him carefully, like a small animal testing if the world was safe again. Ethan picked up a cup of warm soup from the console and offered it. "Food," he said softly, pointing to the cup, then to her. "Eat," she hesitated. Her stomach growled, but her fear was stronger. Ethan placed the cup near her and stepped back, showing he wouldn't force her. After a long moment, she reached for it with trembling hands and sipped. The warmth made her eyes close for a second. It was the first real food she had in days. Ethan smiled quietly. "There you go." The AI's voice filled the air again. "Captain, are you sure this is wise? Unknown species. We don't have medical data or cultural protocols." Ethan rubbed his forehead. "She's alive. That's what matters. We can figure out the rest later." "Humans and this species have a violent history," Astra replied. "Then maybe it's time we change that," Ethan muttered. He turned back to the girl. She had stopped drinking and now stared at him, her glowing eyes softening. She tried to speak, but her voice was too weak, her words broken. He couldn't understand her, but her tone carried confusion and fear. Ethan crouched beside her and drew 2 circles in the air with his finger. "You," he said, pointing to her. Then he pointed to himself. "Me." He placed a hand on his chest. "Ethan." She watched carefully, repeating the motion weakly. "Ethan." He smiled wide. "Yeah, that's me." Then he pointed at her again. "You?" She hesitated. Her lips moved slowly. Lyra, he repeated softly. The name fit her somehow. Light, fragile, but strong underneath. She blinked at him, as if surprised that he remembered it. Ethan stood and adjusted the ship's controls. Outside, dark clouds rolled across the sky. He sighed. "We can't stay here long. If her people find out she's alive?" His voice trailed off. He didn't finish the thought. Lyra watched him move around the cabin. Every sound made her flinch at first, but slowly her fear faded. She could see it now. The human wasn't like the others she'd been told about. He didn't use her pain for gain. He didn't look at her with disgust. He looked at her like she mattered. She whispered something in her own tongue, a soft, trembling phrase. Ethan didn't understand, but he felt the emotion in it. Gratitude. He brought her a blanket and tucked it gently around her shoulders. "Get some rest," he said quietly. "You'll need it." When he turned to leave, she reached out weakly, her fingers brushing his wrist. He stopped and looked back. Her eyes met his. "They said what words couldn't. Don't go." He nodded. "All right," he said, sitting down again. "I'll stay." Time passed slowly in the small ship. Outside, thunder rolled far away. Inside, the 2 strangers sat in silence. One human, one alien, both marked by loneliness and loss. Lyra fell asleep again, this time without fear. Ethan stayed beside her, guarding the small spark of trust that had started between them. He didn't know why he cared so much. Maybe because he saw himself in her, broken, forgotten, unwanted by the world. He remembered his own past, the people who turned their backs when he needed them most. But as he watched Lyra sleep, he felt something new, something he hadn't felt in years. Purpose. The scavenger who once searched for scrap had found something, more valuable than anything money could buy, a reason to stay, and as the rain outside faded into quiet mist, Ethan made a silent promise. He would not abandon her like the others did, no matter what came next. The next morning came with soft light sneaking through the clouds. The storm had finally passed, leaving the alien city silent once again. Inside the ship, warmth filled the small cabin. Ethan sat at the edge of the medical cot holding a data pad, while the alien girl, Lyra, slowly opened her eyes. She blinked a few times, confused by the strange ceiling above her. When she turned her head, she saw Ethan sitting nearby, half asleep but still there. He had not left her side all night. When their eyes met, Ethan smiled faintly. "Morning," he said, his voice rough from staying awake. Lyra didn't answer, but she gave a small nod. Her throat was dry. She tried to speak, but only managed a soft sound. Ethan handed her a small cup of water. "Here, slowly." She drank, and this time she didn't tremble as much. She seemed calmer, her eyes studying him carefully. He noticed it too, that she was no longer looking at him like a threat, but more like a question she was still trying to understand. Ethan placed the data pad down. "You're healing well," he said softly. "You'll be all right soon." Lyra tilted her head. The words were strange to her, but the tone was kind. She felt warmth in his voice, and even if she couldn't understand everything, she understood enough that he cared. For a long moment, there was silence between them. Then Lyra pointed at her chest and whispered, "Lyra." Ethan smiled. "Yeah, Lyra, I remember." She hesitated, then pointed at him. "Emma, then," he laughed softly. "That's right." The sound of his laughter startled her at first, but when she realized it wasn't cruel, she relaxed. Something about it reminded her of a time before everything went wrong, before she was abandoned. Ethan tried using the datapad's translator to communicate, though the device barely worked. Still, through simple words and gestures, she began to tell him fragments of her story. She came from a colony not far from this world, a race proud and cold. They valued perfection, strength, and beauty. Anyone born weak was considered waste. Lyra had been one of those unwanted ones. Her body was smaller, her strength less. They said she was defective, unfit, worthless. Her memories came in pieces, flashes of a metallic city, her mother's frightened eyes, and the soldiers dragging her away. She remembered being left in a transport ship filled with broken machines. When she woke, she was here in the trash fields, left to die. Ethan didn't speak while she shared. He listened. Every word hit him like a stone. When she finished, her eyes filled with tears that shimmered under the ship's light. "Through me," she whispered in broken human words, her voice shaking. "Trash." Ethan felt something twist inside him. He reached out, his hand resting gently on her shoulder. "You're not trash," he said firmly. "Not to me." She looked at him, her lips parting slightly, unsure if she heard right. He nodded again, more softly. "You're someone. You matter." No one had ever said that to her before. Her world had called her nothing for so long that she almost believed it. But this human, this stranger, spoke as if her life had meaning. Lyra's tears fell quietly. She didn't hide them. Ethan said nothing more. He just sat there beside her, letting the silence fill the air. Later, as night approached, Ethan stood by the small window of the ship, staring at the red horizon. The city lights flickered faintly in the distance, like dying stars. Lyra watched him from the bed, her heart strange and heavy. He looked tired, but there was something steady in his eyes, a kind of promise she couldn't name. When he turned back, he saw her watching. "You don't have to be afraid anymore," he said quietly. "I won't leave you." She didn't understand all the words, but she felt them. Something deep inside her believed him. That night as she slept, Ethan sat by her again. His thoughts drifted to his own past, to a younger version of himself, lost on a forgotten planet after the war when no one came to help. He knew how it felt to be left behind. Maybe that was why he couldn't walk away this time. Before closing his eyes, he whispered into the dim cabin, more to himself than to her, "I'll protect you, Lyra, no matter what comes." And though she slept, a small smile touched her lips. The first true smile she had made in years. For the first time since being cast away, she dreamed not of darkness or pain, but of light, and of a human who treated her like she was someone worth saving. Days passed quietly aboard Ethan's small ship. The storm outside had long faded, but inside something new was growing, a sense of peace that neither of them had felt before. The alien girl Lyra had begun to heal. Her wounds had closed, her breathing was steady, and the fear in her eyes slowly softened. Ethan fixed the ship's systems while keeping an eye on her. Every now and then he would glance her way, and each time she looked a little stronger. She had started exploring small corners of the cabin, her bare feet tapping lightly on the metal floor. She was curious about everything, the blinking lights, the humming engines, the food packets Ethan ate. Once she tried to copy him, pressing random buttons on the console. The ship beeped loudly and Ethan nearly jumped out of his seat. Lyra froze, wide-eyed, expecting him to yell, but instead Ethan laughed, a deep, warm sound that filled the cabin. "Easy there, rookie," he said, grinning. "You almost sent us into hyperspace." Lyra didn't understand all his words, but his laughter was contagious. For the first time, her lips curved, a shy, uncertain smile. It was awkward, but it was real. Ethan stopped, staring for a second. "Hey," he whispered, smiling back. There it is. That small smile changed something between them. From then on, Ethan started teaching her simple human words. He'd point to objects and say their names slowly. "Cup," he'd say. "Food, light, ship." Lyra would repeat them softly, sometimes mispronouncing them, which made Ethan chuckle. But she never gave up. Every mistake made her more determined to learn. When she got a word right, her eyes would shine with pride, like a child discovering a new world. At night, they shared meals together. Ethan cooked simple human food from ration packs while Lyra learned to mix herbs from her world that she had kept hidden in a small pouch. The two different smells filled the air, human spices and alien scents blending into something strange but pleasant. As they ate, Ethan told stories, short ones about old Earth, about cities filled with lights, about the oceans, about blue skies that stretched forever. Lyra listened closely, her glowing eyes reflecting every word. She couldn't imagine a world like that. Her world had been gray and cruel. Was it beautiful? She asked slowly, her accent thick but sweet. Ethan nodded. Yeah, beautiful, but also broken. She tilted her head. Broken? He looked down at his food. People there forgot how to care for each other. That's why I left. Sometimes it's easier to fix machines than people. Lyra was quiet for a moment. Then she said softly, "You fix me." Ethan looked up surprised. "What?" She placed a hand over her chest. "You fix me here." He didn't know what to say. Her words were broken, but their meaning hit deep. He smiled faintly. "Maybe we fix each other," he said. Outside, the stars began to appear, scattered like silver dust across the dark sky. The ship floated quietly above the ruins, two lonely souls finding warmth in each other's presence. But peace never lasted long in this galaxy. That night, while Ethan ran system scans, the radar flickered. A faint red signal appeared, a moving dot in the distance. He frowned. "That's not debris." He zoomed in. The ship's computer confirmed it. Incoming vessel detected. Ethan's stomach tightened. The signal carried an alien frequency, one he recognized now. Lyra's people. He turned quickly. "Lyra," he called. She looked up from the corner where she was sorting tools. "We have a problem." Her smile vanished. Her face turned pale. She rushed to the window and saw the faint lights far away. Her heart began to pound. She knew those markings, the black ships of the Dominion, her own kind. They were searching for her. Ethan grabbed a blaster and checked the engine systems. "We can't fight them," he muttered. "We'll have to move fast." Lyra grabbed his sleeve, shaking her head. "They find you," she said in her broken speech. "Kill." Ethan looked at her, really looked at her. Fear trembled in her voice, not for herself, but for him. He placed his hand gently on her shoulder. "They won't," he said firmly. "I won't let them." She stared at him, eyes wide. "Why, help me?" He hesitated, then said simply, "Because someone should have helped you a long time ago." Outside, the faint red lights grew closer, cutting through the dark sky. The sound of approaching engines echoed like thunder. Ethan turned to Lyra. "Stay close. No matter what happens, don't let them take you." She nodded, trembling but brave. For the first time, she wasn't running away alone. Someone was standing beside her. And as the alien patrol ships descended through the clouds, Lyra felt something new stir inside her chest. Not just fear, but strength. She had learned something even more powerful than survival. She had learned to smile and to believe. The night sky burned red as the alien patrol ships drew closer. Their engines howled like thunder, shaking the metal around Ethan's ship. Inside, the lights flickered. The air felt heavy, filled with fear and tension. Lyra stood frozen near the window, her glowing eyes wide with dread. The black ships were from her world, cold, sharp, and merciless. The same kind that had thrown her away. Now they had returned, not to save her, but to erase the shame of her survival. Ethan rushed to the control panel. "They've locked onto us," he muttered. "No time to hide." His hands moved quickly over the switches, trying to power the thrusters, but the system beeped red, still half repaired. Lyra grabbed his arm. "Run," she whispered. "They hurt you. They kill." Ethan shook his head. "I'm not leaving you, Lyra." Her eyes trembled. "They strong. You die." He met her gaze, steady and calm. "Then I'll die trying to protect you." Outside, the first beam of light shot past the ship, grazing its hull. The ship trembled. Alarms screamed. Lyra covered her ears as another blast followed, closer this time. Ethan pulled her toward the lower bay. "Stay down!" Through the smoke and chaos, a voice came over the ship's speaker, cold, mechanical, and in Lyra's language. She froze as she recognized it. "The Dominion Commander, Defective Unit 7 Kara," the voice said. "You were ordered to be destroyed. You have violated our laws by surviving. The human harboring you will be executed. Surrender now." Lyra shook her head violently. "No, no." Ethan looked at her. "What did they say?" Her voice cracked. "They want me." "They kill you." Ethan clenched his fists. "Then they'll have to go through me first." Before she could speak, a sharp explosion hit the side of the ship. The impact threw them both to the floor. Smoke poured in through a crack in the hull. The sound of boots echoed outside in heavy, synchronized, mechanical. The door burst open. 5 tall figures stepped inside, armored soldiers with helmets that hid their faces. Their silver weapons glowed faintly blue. They pointed them straight at Ethan. One of them spoke in harsh alien words. Lyra stepped forward instinctively. "Stop!" she cried, switching to their language. "Please don't hurt him." The soldiers hesitated for a moment, recognizing her. Then one laughed, a cruel metallic sound. "You speak for a human now? You who were thrown away like filth?" Lyra's body shook. "He saved me," she shouted. "He's good." The leader stepped closer. "He polluted you with weakness. You were nothing before, and you are less than nothing now." Ethan rose slowly to his feet. "Enough," he said coldly. "You want to talk about weak? You threw away a living being because she wasn't perfect. You call that strength?" The soldier turned toward him. "Human, this is not your matter. Step aside." Ethan took a step forward instead. His voice dropped low. "She's not your property. She's someone, and she's under my protection." The soldiers aimed their weapons. Lyra screamed. Ethan reached for his blaster and fired first. A flash of light filled the cabin. One alien fell, sparks flying from his armor. Chaos erupted. The remaining soldiers opened fire. Ethan ducked behind a console, firing back, moving fast despite the odds. Lyra tried to help, pulling down wires and knocking tools toward him. One of the soldiers struck her, sending her crashing into a wall. "Lyra!" Ethan shouted. He ran toward her, shielding her with his body as another blast hit the floor nearby. The shockwave threw them both backward. Smoke filled the room. Alarms blared. One soldier advanced, gun raised, ready to finish it. But before he could fire, Ethan leaped forward and slammed a wrench into his helmet. The alien dropped. 2 more remained. Ethan was out of energy cells. He stood in front of Lyra, bruised and bleeding, but still standing tall. "Stop!" Lyra screamed at them, her voice shaking. "He's not your enemy." The leader pointed his weapon at Ethan's chest. "You defend a human over your own kind? Then you are truly broken." Lyra's eyes burned bright blue. "No," she said, her voice rising, trembling with power. "I'm not broken. I'm alive!" A sudden wave of energy burst from her hands, raw, glowing, uncontrolled. It knocked the soldiers backward, their armor sparking. Ethan shielded his face from the blinding light. When the smoke cleared, the soldiers were gone, thrown outside the ship, their vessel retreating into the dark sky. Lyra collapsed, breathing hard, tears falling down her face. Ethan caught her before she hit the floor. Hey, it's okay, he whispered, his voice shaking. You did it. You're safe. She looked up at him, eyes shining. I hurt them, she whispered. You protected us, Ethan said. That's different. Outside, the night was silent again. The enemy ships had vanished, but their message remained. They would come back. Inside, Ethan held Lyra close as she cried into his shoulder. The girl who had once been thrown away had just stood against her own people. And though the battle had ended, both of them knew this was only the beginning. The ship was silent after the battle. Smoke still curled from broken panels and sparks flickered in the air like dying stars. Ethan sat against the wall, breathing hard. His shirt was torn, blood running down his arm. Every movement hurt. Lyra knelt beside him, shaking. Her hands hovered above his wounds, trembling and unsure. Ethan, she whispered. Her voice broke. You hurt. He tried to smile, though his face was pale. Just a scratch, he said weakly. I've had worse. But she could see the truth. His body was failing. The burns were deep, the bleeding heavy. He had fought for her when no one else ever had. Now she didn't know how to save him. Tears slipped down her cheeks. You saved me, she whispered. Now I can't save you. Ethan reached out, his hand finding hers. His grip was weak but steady. You already did, he said softly. You made me remember what it means to care. His words were fading, his eyes closing. Panic filled her chest. She shook him gently. No, stay, you stay. Her glowing tears fell on his skin, and something strange began to happen. The drops shimmered, spreading a soft blue light across his wounds. The light pulsed, slow at first, then stronger. The bleeding stopped. The burns faded. Lyra gasped and pulled her hands back, but the glow only grew brighter, surrounding them both. Inside her chest, something awakened, a warmth she had never felt before. Her kind had always called her defective, powerless, but now that power surged through her like a heartbeat of light. Ethan groaned, then opened his eyes. The pain was gone. He looked down, confused. The wounds had vanished, leaving only faint marks on his skin. What did you do? He whispered. Lyra stared at her hands, glowing faint blue. I don't know, she said, her voice shaking. I feel alive. He sat up slowly, still weak but breathing normally again. The glow around them faded, leaving the room dim once more. He looked at her, really looked, and saw something new in her eyes. Confidence. Strength. The fear that once ruled her was gone. She turned her palms over, still glowing faintly. They said I had no power, she whispered. They said I was nothing, Ethan smiled. They were wrong. She blinked, surprised by his calmness. You not afraid? Of you? He chuckled softly. No, Lyra, I'm proud of you, her lips trembled. No one had ever said that to her. Not once in her whole life. She moved closer, placing her hand over his heart. It's warm, she said quietly. You're alive. He covered her hand with his own. Thanks to you. For a while they sat there in silence, the hum of the ship filling the air. Outside, the stars shone cold and distant, but inside, a soft peace settled between them. Ethan broke the silence first. They'll come back, he said quietly. Your people. They won't stop. Lyra nodded. They fear shame. They want to erase me. He looked at her, his eyes serious. Then we'll make sure they never can. She frowned slightly. We? He smiled faintly. You think I'd leave you now? For the first time, Lyra laughed. A soft musical sound like wind through glass. It startled both of them. Ethan laughed too, weakly at first, then freely. When the laughter faded, Lyra stood and walked to the broken window. The red clouds of her dying world stretched far below. I never see stars from above, she said softly. Ethan joined her. They're beautiful, huh? She nodded. They look free. He looked at her reflection in the glass, her pale blue skin glowing in the light of distant suns. So are you now, he said. Free. Her eyes filled with tears again, but this time they were not from sadness. You gave me this, she whispered. You gave me freedom. He shook his head gently. No, Lyra, you gave it to yourself. You just needed someone to remind you what you were worth. She turned to him smiling, truly smiling now, without fear or shame. Worth more than gold? She asked softly. He laughed, nodding. Way more than that. Outside, the galaxy stretched endlessly before them. Stars, worlds and hope waiting beyond the darkness. Lyra looked out one last time at the ruins below. "Goodbye," she whispered in her own language, not to the world that hurt her, but to the pain she was leaving behind. Then she turned back to Ethan. "Where we go now?" He grinned. "Anywhere we want," and for the first time she believed it. Weeks passed since the battle. The scars on Ethan's ship had been repaired, but the memories remained, burned into metal and heart alike. The galaxy outside looked peaceful again, full of stars that seemed to watch silently as the small vessel drifted between them. Inside, things had changed. Lyra no longer moved like a frightened shadow. She walked with quiet confidence, her eyes bright and her smile unafraid. The girl who once hid from her reflection now stood tall beside the human, who refused to let her die. Ethan leaned over the control panel, scanning nearby systems. "Fuel's low," he muttered. "We'll need to stop soon." Lyra sat near him, legs crossed, playing with a small broken part he'd given her to learn mechanics. "Stop where?" she asked. He smiled. "Somewhere quiet. Maybe a world with trees and real air." "You'd like that?" She tilted her head. "Trees? Green?" "Yeah," he said softly. "Green. Alive. Like hope you can touch." She smiled faintly at his words. She liked the way he described things. Simple, warm, and full of pictures she could almost see. They landed hours later on a small moon covered with silver grass and gentle winds. The sky glowed faint gold. Lyra stepped out of the ship, bare feet touching the soft ground for the first time. She looked around, eyes wide, whispering, "It feels like peace," Ethan chuckled. "Yeah, not bad for a scavenger's map." For a moment they just stood there side by side, listening to the wind. It was quiet, no alarms, no engines, no fear. Only the sound of life continuing. Later, as the night fell, they sat near a small campfire outside the ship. The flames painted their faces in soft orange light. Lyra stared into the fire, her reflection dancing in her eyes. "Ethan," she said slowly, "why you helped me?" "Really?" He took a moment before answering. "Because when I saw you that night lying in the trash, it felt like looking at myself. I knew what it was like to be thrown away." She turned toward him. "You?" He nodded. "Long ago during the war, I lost my squad. My own people said I failed. They left me behind. I survived, but I stopped believing anyone deserved saving. Until I found you." Lyra's throat tightened. "You found—" "Reason again," he smiled faintly. "Yeah, you reminded me." The wind carried a soft hum through the grass. Lyra leaned closer to the fire, whispering, "My people will come again." "I know," Ethan said, "but this time you won't face them alone." She looked at him for a long moment, then nodded. "Together," she said. He grinned. "Together." They stayed on the moon for days, repairing the ship and gathering supplies. Lyra learned fast, how to fix circuits, how to fly short routes, even how to joke a little. Her laughter filled the cabin like sunlight after rain. One morning, as the stars faded behind the dawn, a soft beeping broke the calm. A signal, an open distress call from another planet. Ethan checked the data. "A colony's under attack," he said. "They need help." Lyra walked to him. "We go?" He looked at her surprised. "You want to?" She nodded. "Someone helped me. Now I help someone." Ethan smiled, pride shining in his eyes. "You sound like a real hero now." She tilted her head with a small grin. "I learned from one." They launched the ship again, breaking through the soft clouds. The engines roared, cutting through the silence of space. As they rose, Lyra looked back at the silver moon fading below them. She whispered a final goodbye, to her fear, her past, her pain. News of them spread slowly across the outer worlds. People spoke of a human who protected a discarded alien girl, and of an alien who healed wounds with her hands and her heart. Some called them fugitives. Others called them saviors. But among those who had no one, they became something more, symbols of hope. Wherever they went, Ethan and Lyra repaired broken things, ships, colonies, and sometimes even people. They didn't stay long anywhere, but their names lingered like whispers. One evening, as they drifted past a field of glowing stars, Lyra stood beside Ethan at the cockpit. "You think we ever stop running?" she asked quietly. He smiled. "Maybe one day. But for now, I'm fine flying beside you." She looked at him, her heart full. "Me too." Outside, the stars stretched forever, endless and bright. Inside, two souls once lost had found something greater than survival. They had found each other. And for Lyra, the girl once thrown away like nothing, she was someone at last.